ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call this meeting of the Morristown Board of Liquor and Tobacco Control to order. It is 5:32. Do we have any agenda changes or additions? None. We have minutes from March 17th to approve. I assume everyone's had a chance to look at them.
I'll make the motion to approve the Board of Liquor and Tobacco Control meeting minutes of March 17th, 2025.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by Chris and a second by George. Sarah, you're taking minutes?
Sarah, you got this?
I am.
Chris and George? Chris and George.
Chris and George.
Sorry, I'm still troubleshooting on my side.
Any discussion regarding the minutes from March 17th, 2025? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
That would be unanimous, whoever's taking those minutes. Okay, liquor license applications. We have 5 on our list, and I assume Jason, our chief of police, is fine with this? Good. No concerns? Okay, so no concerns from the chief. I would entertain a motion.
So I'll make a motion to approve Black Diamond Barbecue LLC for first class, third class, and outside consumption. Copley Golf Corporation for first class, third class, and outside consumption. Cumberland Farms of Vermont for second class. POM Enterprises for first class and outside consumption. And Rock Art Brewery for first class and outside consumption.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by Chris, a second by Richard. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
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 That would be unanimous. We have no tobacco license applications, and we have no requests for catering. Okay, I would take a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
So I have a motion by Chris and a second by Richard to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
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 And that would be unanimous as well. Judy, I'll give you a second.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those nights. Viber's all set, hold on a sec.
We're required to tape everything now, so
Okay,
you're probably familiar with this.
okay.
Okay, it is 5:35, Monday, April 7th, 2025. I'd like to call this regular Select Board meeting for the town of Morristown to order. It's my understanding we have an addition?
No, we don't.
We don't? Okay. We have no additions or changes. We have minutes from March 17th, 2025.
I would make a motion to move the minutes of March 17th, 2025.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by Chris and a second by George to approve the minutes of March 17th. Any discussion? The only thing I would say is, it's pretty minor, but just to ask our scribe to maintain past tense going through.
Oh, yeah.
And the word aesthetics is spelled wrong, but that's okay. I think we know the meaning of the word. Okay. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
That would be unanimous. We have minutes from March 26, 2025.
So I would move the minutes of March 26, 2025 with maybe one suggested change in new business, section 1.
Can I get a second first, and then we can talk about it?
Okay.
Yeah. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Chris and a second by George. Go ahead, Chris.
So in new business, section 1, update on Jersey Heights, sort of second to the last sentence, it talks about based on a preliminary construction bid amount of $369. I double-checked with Brent. It's based on a 30% design factor, and I think that would be important to have in the minutes.
Okay.
That would
So
be-
just that sentence ends based upon a 30% design?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion will reflect that one change. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented with that one change, please say aye.
Aye.
And that would be unanimous. Thank you. So under new business, we have some guests. We have Alyssa Johnson and Jessica Savage here from the Vermont Council on Rural Development. And they are going to do a presentation for us. And this is, the council has done some work here in Morristown in the past. So welcome back. Thank you very much for coming. Just going to ask you to come up to the microphone because we do have to record everything. And also because we have people on Zoom that will be listening.
Is Matthew with you? VDA?
ADH? Okay.
We carpooled together. We were the VCRD staff team. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Alyssa Johnson. I'm the Community Visit Program Director at the Vermont Council on Rural Development.
And hello, I'm Jessica Savage. I'm the Director of Programs and Strategic Initiatives at the Vermont Council on Rural Development.
And by way of presentation, we'll give a little background about our organization, who we are, the type of work we do in communities, and then certainly happy to answer any questions you all or the public might have about that. I'll start off and say the Vermont Council on Rural Development, we're a state rural development council. At this point, I think just a handful remain active across the country, but we're actually authorized by the federal Farm Bill. That doesn't come with any funding or special recognition, but it does let us have a really interesting board structure. So our organization's board of directors is made up from federal representatives, state representatives, representatives from the governor's cabinet, folks who work in statewide offices, the nonprofit sector, the local sector, and a really interesting group of folks who really give us a view into what issues are impacting rural communities across the state. So that's who we are, but besides that, we're a nonprofit, independent organization, and we do community and statewide facilitation. So we do facilitation on the local level in a community like a town. We also do statewide convenings on topics that are relevant to the future of local communities. You all actually have used our services before. So I gave the name, I'm the Community Visit Program Director, and I said when I walked in, I can't give it away because it's our last printed copy, but I have the 2011 Morristown Community Visit Report. Was anyone here part of this? Yeah, one in the audience, very exciting. I would say it was before my time, but to speak to the Community Visit Program, so it is one of our most long-standing programs. It's an opportunity to bring folks together in the community in a facilitated discussion. Again, we provide the facilitation throughout. It's a 4-month process. Wherever we work, we don't know what's next for the future of your community. We don't know about any of the communities we work in. And so we bring together a local planning group. They help us understand what are the issues on the minds of folks in your community, what's the best way to get the word out and to do outreach, and help design a series of public meetings. We have a step 1 meeting where folks come together. It's business and it's also fun. So you do like a community dinner, there's maybe some live music, but we also have forum conversations and we ask folks for those topics that this community planning committee has decided on, what's working really well, what's challenging, and most importantly, what are their ideas for the future? What we've seen across Vermont is fundamentally what happens in Vermont communities is things that people who live in those places step forward and want to make happen. I'll sidebar for a minute and say, so at that first meeting, we brainstorm. Everyone comes with ideas. We come back a month later, often in like a gymnasium. We literally put all those ideas up on the wall and let folks vote about what are the most important priorities, and then come back a month later to create community task forces. I won't speak to the process, but I will read from this report. So, determined by Morristown residents at a VCRD community meeting, May 4th, 2011, these were the 4 priorities at that point. Develop a Morrisville food co-op and organize the foods industry. Organize a business incubator. Redevelop empty buildings downtown. Improve trails and walkways and physically unify the town by building a pedestrian bridge. So you all have more history in this community, certainly, but I think it's interesting to see how that was things folks in your community came together, decided were important, rolled up their sleeves, and as far as I know from a distance, in many ways made happen and made a reality for you all. So that's the community visit process. The pieces I would add logistically for select board members. So it's a very popular program. At this point, we have about a 2-year waiting list, but if you are interested, we only work across all our programs where we're invited. It's part of why we're here tonight. So we ask for an invitation from the select board in any town where we're gonna work, but then we work on behalf of the whole community. We're very clear that it is not a municipal process. It's not something run by the select board, but again, we want that formal invitation from you all as the governing body if it's somewhere we're going to work. So again, if you're interested, we are always accepting letters of request saying, yes, we would love a community visit. We have an advisory group made up of members of our board of directors and also our friends and partners across the state, folks like USDA Rural Development, Preservation Trust of Vermont, who help us decide where to work next. The 2 commitments we asked for the town are funding for a townwide mailing to help get the word out. A big advantage of this program is 2 of us work basically around the clock wherever we're working to get the word out, because that's what it really takes to make folks aware of our process, and also funding for that first community dinner to help encourage folks to come out. So that's the community visit process. It's our most cut and dry process, but again, most scripted, I should say. It's useful to give us a baseline. I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to talk a little bit more about VCRD more holistically and some of our other programming.
Thanks, Alyssa. And we'll take questions for sure after we do our little spiels here. So like I said, I have the privilege of working across all of our programs. So VCRD in recent years have been responding to the needs of rural communities all across the state by expanding our offerings. You know, I think we've seen the trend of needing additional support for community engagement, for technical assistance, for capacity building activities. And so we've added a few programs to our portfolio since we were here in 2011. So most of them are made for smaller towns, so towns that are either less than 2,500 people or are really small, so even smaller than that. But the other program that you might want to consider here is our Resilient Communities program. That's under the heading of our Climate Economies program. We've noticed for years and know from data that our rural communities are the most impacted by climate change, and so we have a steady offering for communities as they think about climate resilience and climate planning. In fact, we are working with a small group here in Morristown doing the lightest touch right now, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But with the Climate Economies Resilient Communities program, we offer kind of a spectrum. We really try to meet the community where they are, from like very light touch, like we're doing right now with Morristown, all the way up to a big community process, similar to community visits, but with a focus on climate and energy and resilience questions and concerns. We did that work in Johnson recently in Lamoille County, so we did a big flood recovery and resilience process with them. So what else can I tell you about that program? That program has a little bit less of a wait list, so it's about a year. We just closed our applications and have our commitments for 2025, but again, we'll open the applications again at the end of this year and build our slate of communities that we'll work with next year. We similarly have an advisory committee that helps us decide which communities we should work with through that program as well. So we are, I mentioned sort of light touch all the way through a big process. So the example is very local to here, where we've been working with the Conservation District and your Conservation Commission to help design. They're going to facilitate it. It's very light touch. I think Laura, who runs this program, has met with them a couple of times just to help design the agenda and think about ways to make it an inclusive process, but they're going to facilitate the meeting. So that's an example of like very light touch work that we do sometimes through climate economies, resilient communities. The other thing I just want to say is we provide connection to resources. We're always available to any town, especially if we did a community visit or we have a relationship with a community, we want to show up, right? So while we're sort of saying there's a year or 2-year wait list for some of these big community processes, we're always available to troubleshoot or think through or connect you to other resources or people who might be able to do this kind of work sooner than we might be able to do it. We don't, we have a branded process for sure, but it's all open source. And we have a list of folks that we really trust who know how to do community engagement, who could do outreach, who could work with you in a different way. And so I just wanted to name that as, in the interim or as you consider maybe some of these bigger processes, don't hesitate to reach out with things that you might want some resource connection or technical assistance on in the meantime. Anything else I missed, Alyssa?
We have material.
We have materials.
This is the
Johnson one. And we're happy to answer any questions that folks might have.
I can start. Well, first of all, thank you very much for coming, and thanks for the presentation, and thanks for the work back in 2011. I can tell you that the Morrisville Food Co-op is up and running and doing very, very well right now, and so it's turned itself into a strong business in town with a very good clientele. And for the last, I was on the board for 3 years, and we weren't always in the black, but we are now. So, or they are, I should say.
Yeah.
I can't take any credit for it, but yeah, they've done really well. And I know one individual in town, when they saw you on the agenda, they made sure to reach out to me, and thank you once again for that community visit back in 2011. So at least that came to fruition and in a very, very good way. Other questions?
Alyssa and Jessica, this is a pretty remarkable program, an opportunity, I think, for the community. With so many irons in the fire and so many things that you're dealing with, you, as Brenda's often said, as a board and as an administration, you feel like you're drinking from the fire hose all the time. And to have the ability to have somebody come in and sort of nurture a process of working toward common goals. I'll be really interested to sort of earmark in, more specifics as the program unfolds, but I would be very much in favor of getting on the waiting list to see what can come of this. I think it's an opportunity for the community to come together. We see so many places in Vermont that have eliminated town meetings and sort of developed into silos, so to speak. This will be a really good opportunity to bring people together and focus on some really positive projects and ideas.
Other comments?
I'm going to agree with that. I hope that you get signed in, and I think it's great for the community to have a working situation. Thank you.
And you mentioned earlier that you do get help from the Farm Bill, I believe you said, but you don't get financial help, do you?
No.
This is, some of us were out kind of a downer meeting this morning, listening to our legislators talk about federal spending and how federal spending's not doing so well, or isn't helping right now, let's just put it that way. But you're not dependent upon those federal dollars?
We are dependent on some federal dollars for specifically our community visit program, but it seems like that will proceed. It's through MBRC. But we do fundraise for all of our programs. And like Alyssa said, the only cost to a community is we ask for the community to pay for the townwide mailing and for food for the first meeting. But we really see that this only really works if we fundraise for it, so that we can truly work for everybody in a community.
Well, I certainly hope you're not part of the federal cuts, but
Yeah.
that seem to
And
be
I would
happening.
just add the real specificity, we get to have congressional liaisons from each of, that's why it actually has to be in the Farm Bill, because normally if you're a state director for a congressional agency, you can't also sit on a board. So that's really the nuts and bolts piece. But as Jessica said, we fundraise, including through some federal grant programs for it. In terms of community funding, I would also just add, it's something we're seeing and feeling with the communities we're working with in Candor. You know, a component of the community visit process is also bringing a visiting listening team to be here and witness on the ground the concerns and ideas suggested by folks, but then also potentially come back once you've decided on your priorities to really think about resources to move it forward. So I think in all the communities we're working with, we're thinking about what does that look like in this moment in terms of getting communities the resources they need to move forward.
And I would agree, I'd love to be on the waiting list as well. We've certainly heard in the last many years, a lot of ideas come from the audience for things that they would like to see improved in Morristown, so.
If you all and/or Brent want to send us a letter to that regard. And I would just note, you know, again, I'm the one who keeps track of these, at least for community visits. And as Jessica mentioned, Resilient Communities will open up again this fall. So you have another opportunity. I think anything that you can speak to in terms of the need you see in our community. The piece that we work with our advisory community say is why this community, why right now? And I think the more you can speak to what you're seeing on the ground and why you think this would particularly be of use to your community in the time frame we're able to get to it is all useful in our decision making.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. Okay.
We'll leave piles of papers if you want the one pager on our board, the community visit program, reports from Johnson, et cetera.
Great.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Have a safe trip home. Okay, move.
The 2011 one in the vault, I kept my copy on the way back then, and I started with in the vault. If anybody wants to look at it.
Good. Thanks,
Did we
Sarah.
ask if anybody in the community had questions?
I didn't ask. Is there anybody in the audience that has any questions for Alyssa or Jessica before they leave? Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Anybody online? I don't see any hands. Well, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to move on. New business number 2, Morristown Conservation Committee. I see one ex-member in the room. I think I see the chair of the commission here. And we have a request for an appointment to appoint Nancy Donovan to the Morristown Conservation Commission for a 4-year term.
Nancy is on Zoom, I believe. She
Oh, 5661, I think
recovering
is.
from cough.
I'm here on Zoom. I'm sick, so I didn't want to come in and
Well, thank you for that, Nancy. Anything you might want to add to your application? We've all had a chance to read it.
nothing further to add.
Okay. Well, thank you for stepping up, and I'm assuming the Conservation Commission is in agreement with this appointment or this application?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I would entertain a motion from the board.
I'll move to appoint Nancy Donovan to a 4-year term to the Morristown Conservation Committee.
Do I have a second? Second. So I have a motion by Chris and a second by Richard. And I know I spoke to one of you this morning, and I think you said that there's still another opening on the commission as well?
There is one more opening. And I just want to.
Thanks, Ron.
I just want to correct what is on the agenda and what I think Chris read as the motion. It's not the Conservation Committee, it's the
So,
Conservation.
Commission.
Okay, okay. So the motion will read to appoint Nancy Donovan to the Morristown Conservation Commission for a 4-year term. Thank you for that.
And so, yes, we have an opening and it's anxious to fill that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
That would be unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Number 3, we have an opening on the Morristown Development Fund Loan Advisory Committee, and there is an application in our packet to appoint Charlie Burnham to serve on that committee for a 3-year term. Do I have a motion?
I-
Well, I'm actually going to make a motion to table it because this has not gone before the commission. And I do know that another application came in.
Okay.
So I feel like it's premature for us to appoint someone that hasn't formally gone through the process.
Okay.
Is there a process? Does the committee have a process to vet people, interview people, and recommend them for appointment?
My understanding that, yes, Mary Ann Wilson was on here. Yeah, Mary Ann.
Yeah, I did see Mary Ann up there, and I think her hand is up and may want to speak to this. Mary Ann, do you want to speak to this conversation? Mary Ann Wilson, can you hear us?
It's not muted. Marianne, your audio is not working. It's not coming through. So your microphone's not working.
Mary Ann, I don't have her number. I text her.
Yeah, I was going to say, if she wants to call in, it was my understanding that she did want to speak to this issue
Yeah,
tonight.
sure. I mean, she's our chair, so she should.
Do you want to call my phone, Marianne? You can?
Marianne, there is a phone number you can call to get on Zoom. Just pick up your phone. Call 1-646-558-8656.
I actually have her number. Let me. It's not her number anymore. Sorry, I tried to call you, Mary Ann, but
I can try calling her. I have her number.
I'm going to suggest that if we can't get her on here soon, that we go on to the next item and perhaps come back.
Hey, Brent.
Hi, Marianne.
Okay, there she is.
Sorry, I don't know why I can't unmute myself. So I can hear you all just fine.
So Mary Ann, were you able to hear the issue that we're discussing
Yes.
right now?
Yes, I did hear. And I did hear Laura as well. But we met last meeting, and I think we were only missing one person. And we are all in favor of Charlie Burnham joining us.
well, I mean, Mary Ann, I know we discussed it, but it wasn't a formal vote. And I know that another application has come in.
I can't get on, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I have also lost the whole Zoom thing. So can you still hear me, Brent?
I can. I'm just going to move my phone over to select board member Streets so that she can speak into the phone. You can hear.
I couldn't hear her.
Hi, Mary Ann. I'm just a little concerned because I know we discussed it, but I thought it was in a much more casual, just as he might be interested. And I'm just a little concerned about the process. And I do know that
I got one this morning.
that another one came in this morning. I just want to be clear that, in the past, there's been issues with, people putting in applications and then somebody gets, I just want to be clean about the process.
Well, as far as the process goes, I'm not sure we had to take a vote, but we had to make a recommendation to the select board. And I was under the impression that we were in agreement that Charlie would be a good candidate. So I advised him to complete the application online, and I believe that he did. I think Judy and
Okay.
Brent have seen that. I would support him, and I know that I certainly would. He has got lots of municipal experience in Stowe, Morrisville, and Elmore, and business. And I think he would be the perfect candidate.
Yeah, just so you know, Marianne, we have all received that application and read that application. It's in our packet. So I guess my question to you is, how would you like us to proceed tonight? I think the select board would be more than willing to move in the direction that you think you would advise us to move in.
Well, I would advise you to move to accept Charlie as a member of the Morristown Development Fund, please.
Okay.
Could I ask one question?
Sure.
Marianne, did you have a deadline for any applications, or was this, you went out and tried to curate?
Yeah, we did not have a deadline, and I'm not sure it ever was put up on the website.
It was.
And I didn't know that there was another application that had come in. I just thought that if he was the only one and that's what you had, before the meeting, then he's certainly a viable candidate.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Marianne. Other board comments? 1 second.
So I guess I didn't realize that a formal notice had gone out to him and that it had come through, but I do have concerns that there wasn't a deadline, and that we do have another application in here. And I know that there's some other circumstances that we know of on the board. So I just want, I love Charlie too, I highly recommend him. I just want to be careful.
Laura, I don't know all the things that you're speaking of, but I certainly will hold Charlie's application, and if there's another one, and we can convene a meeting, but I haven't heard about these problems that you're talking about.
Oh, not problems, just that we had another board member who wanted to step off but wouldn't step off until we had a replacement. That's what I'm referring to. So instead of having one spot, we could have two. That's
right.
That's the conversation. It's not a problem, it's a good problem, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we certainly can convene a meeting based on new information.
Yeah.
So once
I
again,
just-
Marianne, I'm going to ask you, what would you like us to do? We can act on this application tonight, or we can wait?
Okay, what I prefer is that you act on Charlie's nomination, and then if in fact one of our other members gets off, then we could entertain a new application.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Well, with that said, she's asking us to act on the application, so I would leave it up to the board to make a motion if the board should so choose.
I'll make a motion to appoint Charlie Burnham to the Morristown Development Fund Loan Advisory Committee.
So I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
The only question is,
So I have a motion by Chris and a second by Richard. Discussion.
is there a term? It's 3 years, okay.
Again, I'm just going to reiterate the fact that we did not have a deadline,
Yeah.
that, and it wasn't the way it was handled that we recommended him, but there was an express interest, I didn't know that he was specifically interested. I just really am adamant that we clean up the processes and that everything is transparent. And that, I just am, again, I recommended Charlie and would love Charlie. But I know we put it out there, and I don't want to discourage other people to why apply when they just decide? And so that's mine.
So can I say something?
You sure can.
So the big hangup here is the fact that there's no, I shouldn't say hangup, I don't mean that, but the fact that there wasn't a deadline that was advertised, is that kind of where we're at? How long was this out there for? How long was this posted?
And even the conversation we had,
No, but how long was this posted? That's,
not that long.
I think we have an answer by Judy.
Well,
It
it's
has.
been on, it has been out there for a while.
Judy?
Yeah, Judy Alberry from Executive Assistant. So I did post this as soon as Steve Leach had indicated in December that he was not going to be running for another term, and he would be done in March at town meeting. So I went ahead and put it on the website and put it out there for folks to know about. We didn't get any interest at all until Laura actually recommended him at an MDF meeting. And then this morning, when I came in my inbox, there is another applicant that's interested. But it
Okay.
had been out for several months, about 4 months.
And that application has come out since we've
Well,
posted an agenda
Exactly.
too.
And I will say the conversation at the actual meeting was that we hadn't got any. And so I started contacting and calling people and talking with people. So not realizing that it wasn't clear to me at all that we were going forward with Charlie, that we were, you know, that we were throwing out a recommendation and putting out request. And that it's just clear we probably need to put a date on it. But I think it's a pretty easy, I hate to call people in, but there is some extenuating circumstances that it may just work out rather than dismissing somebody. So I guess I'm just asking, let's spend a little more time and get this right.
And Laura, you think that there might be another vacancy coming up right away?
The conversation, I'm assuming it's, another person has expressed that they would like to get off, but that they would not leave us high and dry.
Okay.
So the
So this new application that came in this morning, that person could apply for that vacancy when it appears?
Yeah, but, I mean, it just seems like, again, I think we should do it all at once and just clean it up.
Yeah.
That's mine. And again, I'm just a little concerned that it just wasn't a
I'd like
formal.
to speak again, Brad.
Okay, I have you on the mic.
Okay. I'm not even sure that our bylaws are corrected about, you know, accepting members to the board. I know we can have up to 5, but I'm not sure there's any real process that's prescribed in our bylaws. And maybe that is something that we need to take a look at. But as a member, as the Morristown Development Fund, we've known that Steve was going to retire at town meeting. And so we are desperate for another member so that there's not just 2 of us. Oh, and Laura as the liaison. So if we're going to post it, I just assume post it for 2 more people. But let's get Charlie on as a member so we can move forward.
Yeah. George?
Mary Ann, let me clarify something for me in what you just said. Are you unable to act as a committee because you do not have enough members at this point to
With
do
Laura
business
as a
or
voting
not?
member, we do have.
Yes.
Even without Charlie or another person?
Right, correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Judy again. Laura had mentioned that we didn't have Richard, somebody said it's something about a deadline to apply. And I keep them out there until we get somebody to fill a vacancy. I don't put a deadline on them because I've had a lister position out there for quite a while and I don't have anybody filling that. Conservation Commission, same thing for Ron. So I typically don't put deadlines when I put these out there because we don't get a lot of interest in these boards. So that's why there's no deadline.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking, and like, how often do we put deadlines on these? And we don't put them on. We've been trying to fill positions on different committees and commissions, you know, often. I hear what you're saying, but part of me,
Sorry.
well, I'm not sure if it's a back door when the application, you know, the process has been out there for 3 months and we've got one application, then one comes in at the very last minute. It seemed more backdoor for us to wait on the one that just came in a few hours ago versus the one that came in somewhat of a timely fashion. So that's just my opinion. Do we have a motion?
You have a motion and you have a second.
Any further discussion? Not seeing anything?
Jamie Jarrett. In light of another applicant there, I think in the best interest in the board is to contact that person and explain the situation, what's going on, and the length of time that they've waited till they put in an application. That's the only fair thing to do. It's communication amongst people. And if we want to have good communication in the community, we got to start someplace. Thank you.
Linda first.
Laura Green.
Laura.
I just am wondering, I'll direct it to you, what Laura means by I started calling people.
Okay,
I don't understand that.
I can ask her. What do you mean by you started calling people?
Just talking around people at town and put it out there. And, you know, it came back to me that somebody had been interested in a while, and I said, well, tell them if they want to call me, I can tell them about the position. So it was just, I didn't promise anything. It's just like I would talk to anybody about a select board position, and because where the postings are, people don't see them. They just don't. And so, just like Mary Ann reached out to Charlie to say, hey, so it's not, but that's why I'm more adamant about that the applications need to, the board needs to say, hey, Charlie is definitely interested, do we want him? And then say yes. Last I heard was, oh, he'd be great. Next thing I know, we're voting on him. And, I wouldn't have wasted my energy calling to get people to apply if I'd known he, was gonna apply. I didn't know until this
Point
came
of
up.
clarification from my point is we talked about different people, and Laura said she would contact Charlie. And I talked to him and I said, now, did Laura call you? And he said, no. So I said, well, here's what we were thinking. So
I wasn't clear I was
wasn't
supposed to call him.
stepping on her toes. She hadn't contacted.
I didn't realize was calling him, but anyway.
George?
Just for clarification, who requested that this article be put on the agenda? How did it get to the agenda?
So if I may speak, so I staff that MDF, and I'm not aware of any formal process by MDF. I do know that the select board needs to, pass by motion, whoever's on it. So it was brought up, everybody, there was head nods, et cetera. So I was just like, okay, I thought that was the process. And so Laura contacted me on Friday, expressed her concern, and I understood, and I said, sorry if I made a mistake, and copied in Mary Ann as a chair, so she was aware. And so I put it on the agenda.
No, and I'm not looking to find fault, I'm just trying to find the procedure. Did Mary Ann call you? As you were staffing?
Mary Ann had called me.
Okay.
I don't know, a week and a half, 2 weeks before, asked what Charlie needed to do officially. We told Charlie he needed to fill out the form. Charlie filled out the form and he submitted it in March. So this was the first opportunity to get it in front of the select board since he filled it out he submitted it 21st or 24th of March.
So here's
Earlier
my,
than that, I think.
Earlier.
let it go. Here's my pickle, is we have the chair, correct, of the Morristown Development Fund Loan Advisory Committee?
Yes.
Suggesting recommending we move forward with this. I hear Laura's concern as well, and it's hard to figure out where to go with this. The chair is saying go. A member is saying don't go. Should we go, or should we say the committee's got to get their stuff together before we do something? I don't know the answer to this.
I've been on planning, DRB, I just heard about this process. Everybody else has a very, very clean process of, putting in applications to the board reviews it and makes a formal suggestion or recommendation to the board. So I guess that's what I was expecting. I never saw this. Again, I have no problem with Charlie. I think he'd be great. But I didn't see this resume until it was in here. So, I thought it was still in the conversation. So that's all I'm just saying is that I just want to clear everything up going forward so that it doesn't look like Laura was saying that I called up, hey, you want to come be on this board? And that's all I'm saying is, and the board's functioning, and I do hear, Mary Ann, we need to move forward, but I think this could happen fairly quickly. And if, the fact that there is somebody else and we weren't real clear about with her, because I just assumed that she put the application in and would come through and would go through the process. So probably my bad too, but I think we could table it and convene quickly and knock this out pretty quickly. And we don't have any applications in. Grant, you can, we're not holding up anything other than.
You have another application that came in today, right?
Yeah.
Besides Charlie.
She made an DF application for funding.
Okay,
So
for funding, okay, I'm sorry,
Oh, no.
for funding.
For funding?
I assumed that's what you meant by an
No,
application.
she's applying for,
Right.
I think, for the
Right.
board.
But that's not
Well,
the way.
it's an advisory.
Yeah, the advisory committee.
So,
Okay,
can I
so-
make a suggestion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Please.
So Charlie has applied for this position. It's clear that the board needs to come, I guess there needs to be an agreement in terms of their policies and procedures in terms of how they move forward. Charlie's submission has been with us for a couple weeks now. It was on the agenda. We had a 13th hour application, potential for more openings coming up sooner than later. I would suggest that to appoint Charlie tonight, encourage the person who has applied this morning to watch for any more applications or openings that come forward, ask the committee to fine-tune their process in terms of how they come to a conclusion for a recommendation to the board, and we're just going to move on. This doesn't seem to be, and I agree with Jean Jarrett. I think that, we need to reach out to her in some fashion and thank her for her application and encourage her to apply again. But I think we've spent enough time on this and we should move forward.
So I'll just say I am uncomfortable tabling this. However, I mean, if it is the will of the board to do that and wait, that's fine. But I do worry about the precedent of putting something out there, having somebody put in an application, put it on the agenda, warn the agenda, get it all out there, and then something comes in the day of the meeting and then we hold it up. That certainly ties our hands to a lot of things in the future if we maintain doing
a
that.
nomination for another member.
Pardon me, Marianne?
I said, we'll be happy to entertain another member.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you for that. Any further discussion? Richard?
I was just going to say, if there's room on this committee for another member, to me, it's a non-issue. We should move forward with, or I feel that we should move forward with Charlie's because of the amount of time that the notice has been out there, the fact that we've had Charlie's application in our hands for over 2 weeks, and the agenda was warned, and we all got it on Friday.
Yeah.
So that doesn't preclude this other individual from potentially having a space on the board.
Thank you, Richard.
According to Mary Ann.
I'm not going to take
Ron
much
Stancliffe.
time. Ron Stancliffe. For all these years that I've been on the Conservation Commission, I have never been faced with people interested in the commission of filing an application. I appreciate the town advertising a positions, but for a volunteer type group, what we talk to individuals about join it, but we've never had to tell them, oh, you got to file an application with the town. But when we do encourage them to visit our group, and in the end, we do, well, if they're interested, we ask for a resume. And then if they're interested, then we approach, we tell them to notify the select board that they're interested to join the Conservation Commission, and we also send a note to the select board that we're interested in those people. And that's how it's been with our group for years. And so I don't know if you want to, I'm not going to take up any more time, but I've offered another alternative. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I am going to, I think, end discussion on this. I think that's it. So all those in favor of the motion as presented to appoint Charlie Burnham to the Morristown Development Fund Loan Advisory Committee for a period of 3 years, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
That would be 4-1, Judy. Okay.
Thanks for your consideration, everyone.
Thank you, Mary Ann, for helping us through this. Number 4, explore grant opportunities for the Noise House. So this is, I'm going to pass this over to Chris.
For the now year that I've served on this board, there's been some significant concerns from the Noise House Museum and their board of directors in terms of the condition of the building, structural repairs. They have what they call a powder post insect infestation there that's doing damage to the barn, and some of the stuff that's some of the archives that are stored in the barn. And I know that they have been put on the back burner, maybe not even on a burner, for a long time now, requesting funds. And because of the way things are in most communities today, having funds available to do infrastructure improvements when we have roads and sidewalks that we haven't been able to deal with, putting money into our buildings has not been we haven't been able to do it. It's not that it's not a priority, we just haven't been able to do it. So I took some time late summer to take a tour of the building. They have significant problems. Most of all is this infestation, but the building is in dire need of some structural repairs. My approach from a fiduciary point of view is that when somebody comes to you and says, we'd like some money to do something, the question is there any other resources available? And so I thought that a good approach to this would be to see if there are any grants available, any resources available to help us. So I reached out to the Vermont Arts Council and talked with a young lady by the name of Michelle Bailey. She was extremely helpful in terms of listening to our sad story about the Noise House Museum, and recommended a series of different potential grants that we could apply for, but also talked to me about this Roberts Sincerbo Fund grant, which basically helps the community or somebody applying for grants to connect with a field representative who would actually come and do an assessment of the building. Now, I know in talking with Joe Mudgett several times, most recently Sunday, that they had an assessment done about 5 years ago, but I think to have something more current would be appropriate. And then there may be some costs involved in this, but there is a grant to help offset that, which we could apply for. So I guess the short story here is that I was on the board of directors for the Waterbury Historical Society for a number of years, was integral in finding them a new museum home and raising money for them. And so history is an important aspect of our towns, and they are the caretakers of our history. And I think that it would be incumbent upon us as a community to do whatever we can to assist them. And I think now is the time. So I am more than willing to work on this, to reach out to see if we can get a field assessment of the building. I think that's important for two factors. One is we get a current estimate of potential problems with the building, but it also help us in terms of moving forward with grants, having done that. And perhaps they could help us do that. I'm speculating a little bit here, but you don't know until you ask. And so I'm coming to the board in sort of in full transparency here, saying this is an issue. I'd like to work on this issue and just get consensus that there's no issue with that.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I think we would all agree that the Noise House Museum is an incredible asset to this town, and you're right, it is preserving our history, and our history is terribly, terribly important to us. I have no problem with you moving forward with this and seeing what you can find out in terms of what kinds of grants might be available.
And I think too that, for anybody that doesn't know, the town owns that building. So it is a town asset that we either need to do some due diligence on, or we need to seriously think of selling it to somebody that might do the things that needs to be done. The problem that presents is, what do you do with all the archival things? And if anybody hasn't been in that building, the house itself is chock-a-block full, but the upstairs of the barn is too. I mean, it almost looks like a hoarder's house. I mean, there's pathways through all of this stuff that's there that they are unable to display just because of available space. Downstairs has some large items in it, but it really could become a nice showplace for Morristown's history. And they're only open 6 months out of the year, I get that. But if not there, where? And I think that we need to pull out the stops here and see what we can do.
Yeah.
Just one, my understanding is they are completely self-funded at this point, paying staff. I believe some of their staff are paid over there.
They are.
Yeah, so even though we own the building, we did put in some money for windows.
They had money, there was leftover
that-
money from a special article. I think they had about $60,000, if I remember right. And they spent pretty close to 40 replacing the windows, because the windows are historic. And it costs a lot of money per window to do it historically appropriate. They do have a little bit of money left over that could be applied toward getting a field assessment done, and maybe some seed money to move forward, but we need to do something, and because those bugs aren't going away. I mean, they've gone through the process of bringing an exterminator in and trying to treat them, but there needs to be a more thorough process.
Yeah, thank you.
George?
Chris, is there, I'll start with the end and go forward. Go from there.
Microphone.
I'm thinking of the Copley Trust, but the big problem with the Copley Trust is they want to have the whole project. Is there a subsection of this that is divisible that they might see as a separate project as a part of this big one, or is it all going to be all bundled up? Because the Copley Trust, I don't believe will go there unless they have a subsection.
I think that's an excellent idea. I think that we would have a better answer to that once a field assessment is done.
Okay.
Is it, are they a 501c3, the Northern?
I can't tell you that.
Because
I believe so.
Because I don't think Copley covers.
I'm not sure Copley has this kind of money either.
No,
No, I'm not talking, no.
No, he's talking about partial, but I think that had been an issue, and so we just need to make sure that, but yeah, if part of it can be done by Copley. I will agree, we do need to get on this.
And I'm not painting any, panacea here in terms of the grants. They're highly competitive. Some of them are very specific. And with the way federal government is going now, we don't even know if there'll be funding available by the time that we would have an application in and they could consider it. So, but again, if you don't ask, you don't know, and we would have to look at other resources to do the work over there, but let's start here.
So you're just looking for a head nod tonight?
Head nod.
Yeah. So I would give you a head nod to go ahead and investigate the availability and eligibility for grant
I'm
resources for
assuming
sure.
they're good with that.
I've talked to Jill about it, yeah.
Just thought,
I'm on the board. I'm happy to speak to this.
okay, just checking, I assumed, but.
Yeah, who is that, please? Hey, Josh, how you doing? Anything you want to add to the conversation?
I just want to echo, can you hear me all right? Sounds good? Yeah. Just echoing a lot of what Chris said, I think he really nailed it. Obviously, for one, the romance of saving the history in town is important, but I'm glad he followed up. It's a town asset, and I mean, if it's got a good roof, I guess it's going to stand, but it's in disrepair, and obviously the longer that goes, the worse it's going to get. My one comment about the assessment, I don't know if you're saying, Chris, you might need another one for a grant, but we've been working off the Lewandowski assessment for a while. Donnie Blake has been assisting. I did a lot of the coordinating with the window restoration project. And there's we have a very coordinated priority list of what needs to be done. And it obviously starts outside in. Like, we're trying to make sure everything is dry and protected first, and obviously is not getting eaten from the inside by bugs. So I think there's a good pecking order of what needs to be done. I just don't know that, and I mean that quite literally. I don't know if more money needs to be spent on an assessment. There's a pretty good one. As far as the window project, you guys also nailed it. We had a half a penny on the grand list for, I think it was 3 years before it got voted down, when we had so many budget discussions going on, got voted down by the people. We requested, I believe, 2 subsequent years to get on the budget. It's kind of same story. We got left on the cutting room floor. So that money's going to be gone. There's a new phase of windows starting this month, and it'll be a small pile left. The windows aren't done. We're starting from the worst to best, but that's what keeps moisture out of the building, and it's obviously very important. I don't know what else I was going to say, but that might be about it. I just think, as a town asset, to your point, Chris, if the answer was not to restore it or work diligently to keep it the way it is and it's to be sold, it's not only a town asset, it's in the center of the town and very, very visible, and it would probably get developed into housing pretty quickly, along with the problem you mentioned, like, where is all this stuff going to go? I quite frankly, I don't even see that as an option, and I'm glad you're all on board, but it's all running out. So thank you. That's it. And I'm happy to help. As I said, as a board member, I am not a museum cultivator or archivist. I am in construction and renovation and have got on to help with this. So anyone can lean on me as a member of the board to partake in these, grant applications, et cetera.
All right, thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Josh. Mary Ann, I noticed you had your hand up, but it just disappeared.
Thumbs up.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. I'm going to move on then. So next, move community comments to the beginning of the agenda. And, Laura, you've asked for this, so I'm going to let you start this conversation.
I have. For 2 years, anybody who sits in the comments knows, but 2 years, in the 2 years I've been on this board, I've had 4 town managers, 2 attorneys, and the VLCT recommend putting the comments in the beginning of the meeting. It's standard procedure for everyone I've ever been to. The trustees do it. And the reason being is that the comments are meant to be for the public to come in and make comments, and then the board will, in theory, reviews it and decides whether it needs to be we need to look into it further to open it up for discussion. By having it at the end, we're getting into this cycle of discussions and people commenting on each other's comments, and it gets nasty and ugly, and we're really bordering on, and what VLCT and everyone has told me is that we're really bordering on some conflict of open meeting law procedure, because we end up discussing stuff that's not on the agenda. So by moving it to the front, it becomes really clear that is your opportunity, and if you haven't witnessed it, I would say you go over to the trustees and you have 2 minutes to present and, you know, an issue or something that you want us to consider, and then at that point, it then moves to the agenda. Once it becomes an agenda item, then it's opened up for conversation, and everybody has time to build their arguments and that. And I just think the comments, even before I got on, they just become contentious, and we just go back and forth, and you know, people start talking about stuff we've already talked about. So it's just a more procedural way, and having been advised by 4 different town managers, 2 attorneys, and the VLCT, I've got to take their recommendation, and I think we need to do that.
Okay. Thank you for that. The only thing I would add to that, I might be the only board member here on the board presently that was here when community comments were at the beginning. And I know at that time there was, and this was the main reason for moving it to the end, there was frustration in that we were paying employees to sit here and sit through the community comments, and that they were just taking up a lot of time at the beginning of the meeting. The argument was made that, you know, the select board's here to do town business, and we need to get to the town business, and we can get to the community comments later. The only thing I would add is, if we are going to move it to the beginning of the agenda, that we put some kind of a time limit on it, so that it takes up a discrete amount of our agenda, so that we're not sitting here for a long period of time waiting to get to the town's business, which is the preeminent reason that we're here. So I would just throw that out there. I would also say that, yeah, I know one of the attorneys you're quoting would say that Morristown offers a ton of public input and public comment, so much so that his opinion is that we should be cutting back on it. I am not recommending that. I just want to say that. I think it's worked well, but I just want to say that there was a reason it was moved to the end, and those were some of those reasons. So I'm going to open it up to other members of the board. Anybody else want to comment?
Honestly, I guess my question would be, like for tonight, you call a meeting to order, before you did agenda changes and additions, is that when you would do community comments?
No, agenda changes and additions would have to be done very first thing, no matter what.
So even if we move public comments to the beginning, and there was something to be discussed, you wouldn't be able to do it that night anyway, because the agenda changes and additions had passed. So I guess my question is, you know, and I agree with Don. I mean, in my former life in Waterbury, we were there specifically to do the community's business, and throughout the agenda, the community has ample time to weigh in on each agenda item and speak to it. Oftentimes, by the time we get to community comments, there really isn't any. In the last meeting, there were, you know, nobody had anything left to say because we were all talked out. I'm not sure I see the intrinsic value of moving it to the front, particularly because even if something came up and you wanted to make it an agenda item for that meeting, you couldn't do it. It would have to become an agenda item for a different meeting.
Well, and I think
Richard?
that's what I'm saying
One sec,
is that,
one sec.
well, no, I want to
just-
address this.
I did-
Because
I
the,
can come right back to, I want to make sure the board
Well-
has a chance. I've given you a chance. Everyone else is waiting. Richard?
So I could go, honestly, I could go either way with this. I think that there's a benefit to have it at the beginning. And to Laura's point about the back and forth that we seem to have at the end, it might stop some of the back and forth and the stuff that's where we get into a discussion that's not warned. If I was to make a comment at the beginning in public comments, I would say, I don't like the dog licensing law, and we would take it under advisement and maybe bring that up as an agenda item at the next meeting. I understand your comments about it maybe taking up too much time if we put a limit on it, but that's also, in my opinion, maybe somewhere we don't want to go, where we want to seem like we're limiting conversation. So I'm really, that's my 2 points of view on that. I'm on other boards where it's at the beginning and it's, people get up and they say things and then they're out, and it may or may not hit the agenda at the next meeting, but so it's either way for me.
George? Yeah, I would agree with Richard on virtually everything he said. If the comment section is, I don't want to say getting out of hand, but I just did, so I'll say that. A little rambunctious maybe is a better way to say it. I think whether it's in the beginning or the end, we need the chair, the board needs to support this, that it's a fixed timeline for every individual, and it's not a back and forth between the board and the board member and the presenter. It is a statement from the presenter of an opinion they have, 2 minutes, we're done, they sit down, somebody else can get up and support that or not in their 2 minutes, but it can't turn into a back and forth between the board and the speaker. If it's under, and that gives Don more of a challenge, there's no doubt about that. If the speakers cooperate, either way works as far as I'm concerned. We've seen most of the time, it does. Occasionally, it doesn't. And the more contentious an issue is, the more it's difficult to hold to the 2 minutes. I could go either way as well, but I do agree that if it's in front, that we can't be talking about tonight's agenda. We have to be talking about next meeting's agenda, and then it becomes up to the chair and the town manager whether it becomes an agenda item or not. And I guess that's what I have to tell.
Laura?
So basically, comments are comments. They are not meant to be conversation. Once they start entering into conversation, we are in violation of open meeting law. That's the issue. By putting the comments in the beginning, it becomes efficient because people that have concerns can voice their concerns, and then we can decide whether we need to move forward. And that's the thing I understand about the employees, but that's not a problem. I've been to tons. Yes, you have to say it, but I think the back and forth and then the audience commenting, it just gets negative. And we literally have people walking out now. I don't know if you've noticed, but once it becomes a conversation, and we're just walking a really fine line. And I think putting it at the beginning, making it smooth and efficient, and it's not to cut off, it's actually hearing the people so that we can offer up a full conversation, because if we're doing at the end, no decisions can be made, and we're talking to this little group of people, so it's not an efficient way to run down business.
And it would seem to me that whether it's at the beginning or the end, it is an opportunity for the community to talk about issues that are not on the agenda.
Yes, things they want to talk about.
Right.
Yep,
It's not a chance to talk about agenda items before we've even had a chance to discuss it.
that's right.
And bring it up.
Yep.
And maybe if we are going to move it to the front, then that needs to be made clear too.
Yep, and it's on you.
Well, that's on me, but that could also be, it can be on me, but as George said, I need your support, but I also I don't need somebody coming back and saying, wait a sec, Don, that's not in rules and procedures, so I would want to see the rules and procedure amended to reflect that.
Yes.
So that there's some support, because I don't want this flying right back
Understood.
at me later on. So, anybody else? Yeah, I see some hands out there. I just want to give the board a chance. Go ahead, Jamie.
James Brewster. You're all right in all of this. It was moved to the end because it was supposedly taking too much time up front. It was becoming too conversational. And my response to that is those previous board chairs were ineffective and didn't have the ability that this board chair has to control a meeting. And they were allowing it to happen. And that was the problem. I don't necessarily see things going on ad length, ad nauseum now. We've got our stopwatch, things of that nature. So I think things are better now, but it is, yes, you do need to put a time on it. And two, it does need to be one way from here to there. Because in previous iterations, members of the select board or the chair would selectively choose what they wanted to respond to and what they wanted to get into a discussion about. And oftentimes, if I asked a question, well, they didn't want to answer my question, but if somebody else got up and started talking about something that maybe they were in favor of, they would engage in that conversation. So you really need to stay one way, listening, thank you very much, take that under advisement, yada, yada, yada. From a selfish standpoint, I'd like to have them at the beginning because I may not want to sit through the entire meeting because some things may be dry as toast or I don't have an interest in. So I'd love to get in, do my business and get out, go home and watch it from the TV or something like that. So that's my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you, Jamie.
Can I ask one question? It's been mentioned also that, because we do the time limit, that we set an initial time frame. It's been recommended to me that you said we'd have 10 minutes and there's 2 minutes. I'm curious to see what people think. Would you hate that if we said, there's always leeway, but basically the first 10 minutes are going to be comments? Would everybody,
So just to be clear, so the first 10 minutes of the meeting would be community comments? There would be a block of time and people would get 2 minutes to speak to a non-agenda item.
Yes, that's what's been recommended to me by lots of sources. That way you're not running into 20, 30, 40 minutes, especially when you've got people coming.
So that would mean if we did that,
I'm
just
curious-
doing the math really quick, that would give 5 people a chance to talk and that's it. And nobody would get a rebuttal conversation, which, yeah.
It's the rebuttals and the,
George?
That's exactly what I was gonna bring up, Doc, to what Jamie said. If we say 10 minutes, 2 minutes apiece, and we've got 15 people sitting in the room, you are gonna pick the 5 people who are gonna speak, and you're gonna try and do that as judiciously as possible, but as the chair, you're gonna select them. Can the same, quote, comment be made that he's picking the people who are gonna speak things that he wants to hear? And I don't wanna put you, or this board, but you in that position. On the other hand, if we have 20 people here, does that mean we need to allocate 40 minutes that evening? I don't think so, but I don't know. It's a slippery slope to go down.
Again, given what I've said, and Jamie's reiterated it for us, but, it was at times a long community comment session that got belabored for different reasons. I don't disagree with Mr. Brewster. I would suggest if we're going to move this, 3 things. Number 1, that we put a time limit on it. Number 2, that it be non-agenda issues.
very clear, yeah.
And there was a third thing too.
This overall time limit.
I say to be clear that it's a one-way conversation.
Yeah, it's a one-way, yeah.
The member of the audience has a 2 minutes or 3, whatever the number we put on it is, to speak to the board, not with the board.
I will say I'm not opposed to this, it doesn't matter to me. So I'm kind of sitting on the fence as well. Before Mr. Brewster comes up and speaks again, anybody else that would like to speak to this issue? I think your wife had her hand up first.
You might say what I say, go ahead.
No, you have to go first.
Because you guys think so much alike.
I know, it happens a lot.
You just aren't learning.
Evelyn Throne, Morrisville. I do think that the idea of moving it to the concept of moving it to the front is good because people do get tired and sometimes things can get very long. I do believe that a short statement of, what this community comment section is about, that it's 2 minutes max, and that really gets, that gets very disciplined. The one-way conversation. And as far as that not being enough time, 10, maybe 15 minutes might even be, the longest. But there's opportunity during a meeting for people to speak on the subjects that are on the agenda. And so it's not as if you're saying, well, we're going to let you talk for 2 minutes and let 5 people maximum talk, and then they're not going to be able to talk the rest of the time. They will have an opportunity to speak to the agenda items, and those are the things that really need to be addressed that night, because that's what we're here for.
Thank you, Evelyn. Now the lesser half. Sorry.
Jerry Throne. Yes, I just want to reiterate what everybody said, that it really needs to be made clear that time period is for items that are not on the agenda. I think that people need to be clear and concise, and the 2 minutes is way too much for people. Because it affords them the ability to just go on and on and on. So I think that 1 minute is sufficient. That way, if you have a 10-minute period, you can get 20 people. I also think that the chair could, depending upon what is being said, if the chair feels that the chair wants to allocate another minute, that would be something that the chair could do. But I think that 1 minute is all that's needed to get a point across. How much time do I have?
Thank you, Jerry.
Can I add a quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
A quick thing, this is not the only opportunity to bring up agenda items. Everybody should know that you can always email Todd and Brent for agenda items. So, I haven't seen
Todd?
20. Did I say Todd? I'm sorry, Brent. Sorry, Brent. That guy. Don and Brent, thank you.
Thank you.
So, and I will say that Don and Brent are much better in the past. It took me 5 years to get an agenda item. The way this board is set up now, they're much more open to receiving this. So there's a much better conversation going on and a better ability to get things on the agenda. So I think I just want everybody to make sure that you can at any time request an agenda.
Okay. And perhaps one way, I see your hand, Jamie, one way in response to what Jerry said, the chair can, privilege some extra minutes to those speakers. But that should be in our rules and procedures too. So and we can't speak about rules and procedures tonight because we haven't warned it. We can't amend that tonight. That would be my understanding. But there's perhaps 2 things to bring to the next meeting, if in fact this goes anywhere tonight, that those community comments be for non-agenda items only, and that the chair, I don't have the words on this, but may use his or her privilege to extend that 10-minute period or whatever the period is. I'm worried 10 minutes is not enough time, but for community comments. But those are my thoughts. Mr. Brewster.
James Brewster, I was going to say, I can't recall if the rules of procedure, actually apply here, because there is in there 2 minutes, 10 minutes. There are some parameters in there, and I don't know if they do apply to this particular portion of the meetings, but certainly worth looking into. I disagree with Jerry. I don't think that 1 minute is enough. I do think 2 minutes is more appropriate. I've tried to get stuff through even by writing it on paper, trying to get concise, and wasn't able to get through. And then thirdly, I don't think that it would be fair either to the public or to the board chair to be having to select 5 out of 10 people. I think there should be a sign-in as you walk in the door. That will mean people will need to get here early if they want to be able to speak. And that takes it right off of the board chair. The board can say, you, and then you, and then you, and then you. And if there's room after that and people haven't signed up yet, then they can raise their hand, they can be recognized. But I think a sign-in sheet, first come, first serve, is probably the best way to do that.
Excellent idea.
So can I?
You sure can.
I'll let Mary
Lou go first.
Mary Lou Nichols, Morristown. I think there's a difference between community comments that belong on an agenda and community complaints. Because it's not the time, I don't think it's, I think if you've got a comment, if you've got a community comment, it means you've thought about it, you've probably put it in bullet form, and you've maybe done some research, so you can come up here and say what you mean. But it's kind of making the difference. Not everybody's an orator, everybody has a different way of presenting themselves. But if you're gonna come up here and kind of like go, now, what about, I went over to someplace and this is the way they do it. This, I don't consider this community. I think it is I don't know if you could have a remedial lesson or something, but what is a community comment? Maybe, instead of just, sometimes people just feel the need, they're frustrated, and they just come up and they just want to complain about something. That's not really a comment. It's just a thought, or, I don't know, frustration, and everybody deserves to be heard, I believe that, but I think 2 minutes is plenty.
Okay. Thank you, Mary Lou. It did used to say community concerns, and that got changed to a more positive wording. Anybody online? So I would, I'm going to suggest, I'm sorry, Chris.
So it's irrelevant to me, honestly, whether we do this at the beginning or the end, because ultimately it's going to be what it is. I think there is some merit to, if somebody doesn't want to sit through a whole meeting to say whatever they want to say in 2 minutes, to have it up front has some merit to it. I'm more than happy to vote in favor of doing it at the beginning of the meeting. I think you walk a slippery slope when you say we're going to allow 10 minutes and up to 5 people to speak. If there's a particular issue that we have 15 people here, I think that it merits an overall time limit. If within 15 minutes people get up and speak, we don't need to be eternal to be memorable here, but we also don't need to be redundant. So if somebody has spoken toward a subject and you agree with it, you don't need to get up and agree with it. I mean, I think that we try to do 10 or 15 minutes. You take as many people as you can, and then we move on.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm going to suggest, since it sounds like we will be changing the rules and procedures here for the board, and that's something we can't do tonight, that we take this issue and put it onto the next agenda, but at the next meeting, that we will talk about an overall time limit. I tend to agree. I think 2 minutes is reasonable. I'm not sure one is. I probably don't adhere to 1 minute very often myself. So, but I think there needs to be an overall time limit. This is my opinion. I think it needs to address non-agenda issues. We'll all know what the agenda is at that point. And I very much like the idea of signing up for community comments on the way in, and that's another thing that needs to be made clear. It's going to happen right at the very beginning of the meeting, and there can be a sheet of paper there, and that paper can be brought to the chair as soon as the meeting begins, and that will be the order, and that will be the selection of speakers. And if it should happen that there are 20 people that want to talk, then the chair can alter the overall time to reflect that. Because obviously, if there's 20 people, we're going to need 40 minutes. You can do the math pretty quickly. In fact, maybe that is the time limit right there. Yeah, that we spend X number of minutes doing this, but it's that X number of minutes is going to be the number of people signed up times 2.
Not to exceed.
Right. Yeah. You go right ahead.
I personally would like to codify the fact that this is a one-way conversation.
Yes. But it's a one-way comment, not
Comment,
conversation.
yes, thank you. Absolutely, it is a one-way comment, yes, thank you.
One-way comment to the chair.
To the chair, correct.
Yeah. And there is just that paragraph in the, it's towards the ends of rules and procedures where this would fit in rather nicely, I think. But I'd be happy to sit down with Brent and Judy and put something together for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
Comments on public comments?
Yes. Okay.
You can't comment.
Officially open it up. for
Thank you,
comment.
folks. Thank you for all those comments. Old business, consideration of the revised work in the right-of-way policy, and I believe we took this up at the last meeting, maybe it was 2 meetings ago. We have that in our packet. The board's had a chance to read through this, so I think we're getting close to looking at a motion tonight to adopt this. Is that correct?
I'm hoping.
Brent is hoping. So I would open it up for perhaps a motion first and then conversation.
So I would move to approve the work in the right-of-way policy as presented.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Chris and a second by Richard. So discussion. We did spend quite a bit of time at the last meeting talking about this. I don't have any new comments, but George?
Richard brought up, I got a very salient point last time around repairing this driveway and whatnot. Do you feel it's been addressed?
That's
properly?
resolved to make, yeah.
Okay,
satisfied.
thank you, that's all I wanted to know.
That was my question too.
And Chris, you brought up in the right of way?
Yeah, and that has been resolved.
Okay. Okay. And I know I brought up the liability numbers, but it sounds like those are considered standard? Okay, great. Any other comments by the board? Okay. Comments from the audience or online? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
That would be unanimous. Thank you. Approving the warrants. Do I have a motion?
I would move to approve the warrants.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by, I nearly said Richard. I have a motion by Chris and a second by George to approve the warrants. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the warrants, please say aye.
Aye.
That would be unanimous. Community comments. Come on up.
I have, James Brewster, 2 comments. And some of this goes back to, the departure of a previous employee and where we find ourselves with no backup in that type of position. And when I think about that, I think about Judy and her position and how valuable she is and how much she does. And I'd really like to see and make sure that there is a plan in place, that there is personnel in place to make sure that Judy has coverage, that Judy has backup, that Judy is not being overworked. And I would say as one taxpayer, if that requires getting another body in here, I think that's appropriate. That being said, also, I have read the job description for the new ZA, planning director, whatever you want to call it. Yes, it does cover anything and everything. It is very comprehensive, too much so. I think that you are asking too much of one individual if the expectation is that individual is going to be able to do all of those things. I think that that is setting that person up to be overworked, overstressed, burned out very quickly. Again, I think that is more than a single person position as written. It is easily a person and a half or two people. And again, as a taxpayer in this town, if that requires getting another body in here, I believe that's appropriate. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Jamie. Anybody else? Anybody online? Okay, thank you. The schedule, the upcoming schedule, we have next week, next Wednesday at 5:30, and the meeting will be
Here.
Judy, did we agree the meeting's going to be here?
Yes.
Okay, so the joint select board trustees and the select board are going to get together for a joint meeting here next Wednesday. And then the next two regular select board meetings will be at 5:30, of course, and those will be held April 21st and May 5th. Other business. We have, I don't see Todd, but at this point, we do have a public records request appeal from Todd Thomas. Just very quickly, there was a public record request by Mr. Thomas, and it was a request for the list of contact names and addresses. There was a response from management, and it was a denial of that public record request. And so tonight, we are here to hear the appeal. Mr. Thomas does have the opportunity to appeal the decision of management. So the select board is here to hear the appeal. So with that said, is Todd online? I was going to open this up so that he would have a chance to present his appeal. But not seeing him here. By the way, I said contact names, addresses, phone numbers, and emails, just to finish that thought. With that said, then, I think it would be wise for us to proceed to executive session to consider this appeal.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I can just note.
By the way, this is Ed Adrian. Ed Adrian is
sorry.
legal counsel for the town of Morristown.
And I appreciate the ability to appear somewhat informally tonight. I'm away and didn't bring a tie with me, so. Mr. Thomas did supply a written response today, which I believe the entire select board received. That's a public record and can be given to anybody who asks. So he has had an opportunity to weigh in. I just wanted to note that for the record.
Okay, thank you for that reminder. Yeah. Yeah, I was just referring to his live presentation, which, okay. So I guess at this point, I would entertain a motion, and the expectation before I entertain a motion is that we would go into executive session, come out of executive session, and then go back into executive session a second time. And there may be action taken between the two.
I just, with
Yes.
one comment, anybody online, I'm going to put you into the waiting room, and when we're done, I'll pull you back into the meeting.
Okay. I do not have, just for the public, I don't have an expectation on time limits. I apologize for that, but we just don't have it. I don't know how long it's going to take. Jamie, go ahead. Microphone? Yeah, that's okay.
James Brewster, is whatever response that was received today too lengthy to read, as it is a public record? Is it too lengthy to read before you folks disappear to executive session?
It's not too lengthy to read.
Would you mind doing that, please?
The response from Todd, I'm assuming?
Whatever was referenced by Ed Adrian that arrived today.
Ed, there's no reason we can't read this?
That's fine.
So this was received at 2:30 this afternoon. I, for one, read this within an hour of this meeting. So it says, "Hello, Select Board members. Thank you for considering my appeal of the attached public records request denial. In short, the town manager's seemingly retaliatory denial of my record request is illegal under Vermont's open meeting law. With it, Brent is denying me the same information from my Outlook accounts, from my Outlook contacts list that I have released upon public record request, if hundreds, if not thousands of times over the last 15 years. Included within the contact information being denied to me that has been readily provided to others over the years are the names, emails, and phone numbers of local public businesses, surveyors, engineers, etc., and public officials, likely including your own town email addresses. If the Select Board reaffirms Brent's denial of such readily available and inarguably public information based on the attached letter, which really stretches to provide its basis on a 1992 Vermont Supreme Court tax document case, parentheses, at a time when the requested electronic contact information did not even exist yet, close parentheses, it is making our town ripe for a lawsuit. Please keep in mind that violating Vermont's open meeting law may open each of you up to potential individual personal financial liability if you incorrectly uphold this denial and deny the release of public information. This is real legal risk here to the town taxpayers if the Select Board withholds this requested public information, but there is no legal risk if you release it to me, open parentheses, as I will not share it or use it for commercial purposes, close parentheses. Per state statute, to legally deny the release of a requested public information, a determination must be made that a person's right to privacy would be violated by doing so. Every person in my Outlook contacts has already voluntarily provided this exact same information to me in the past, which is how my Outlook contact input for them was created in the first place. Therefore, there is no logical basis for the denial of a request for contact information that has already been voluntarily provided to me under this statutory test. For the second statutory test, I am happy to affirm to you all via this email in writing that providing this information to me will not create any sort of private gain for myself. I am semi-retired and will be wintering at my Caribbean house come November. As such, this information has no commercial value to me. The reason I, open parentheses, politically naively, close parentheses, asked for a printed version of my Outlook contacts list was that I simply found myself wanting on recent occasions for some local cell numbers and emails that I did not have in my private cell phone contact list, including the gentleman that I buy my firewood from every spring. In this example, Jim Bradley's cell number is located in my work contacts, open parentheses, and not in my personal phone contacts, close parentheses, because he built sidewalks for the town and he has pulled permits from the zoning office for his rental units. I truly did not need or want most of this information contained in my Outlook contacts. But now that it has been illegally denied to me, open parentheses, at considerable and truly unnecessary cost to us taxpayers, close parentheses, seemingly due to the town manager's pettiness, my resolve for all of this information has been strengthened. Thank you in advance for finding on my behalf with this public records request appeal consideration. Thank you, Todd Thomas.
Does Mr. Adrian have any comments he'd like to make before we go into executive session?
Does Mr. Adrian have any comments he would like to address?
I guess what I would say is this. There were a number of legal claims made by Mr. Thomas. I want to discuss those with the board in executive session. I will say that I disagree with a number of the claims he made. I also want to state that there will be a written decision issued by the board. I expect that they'll take a vote tonight about what to do, but that will be fleshed out in a written decision, which will also be a public record. So if people are curious, they will be able to obtain a copy of that. And that may answer some questions that folks have about the intricacies and legalities of the public records law, because I know that is a titillating subject for everybody. The last thing I'll say is Mr. Thomas makes some reference to open meeting law, and I think he may have conflated the Public Records Act with the open meeting law, because as far as I'm aware, there hasn't been any open meeting complaint, nor do I believe that there's any basis for an open meeting complaint. I will say it's not uncommon for people to conflate the two, since they do both involve transparency, and they're both in the same statutory section. So I just wanted to clear that up as well.
Okay, thank you, Ed. I would then entertain a motion.
I would make a motion finding that we go into executive session to discuss confidential attorney-client communications, to allow the town attorney to provide professional legal advice to the select board, and to discuss potential civil litigation. Premature disclosure of said advice or the potential civil litigation would put the town at a substantial disadvantage.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by Chris and a second by George. Do I have any discussion regarding the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
That'd be unanimous.
I would also move to go into executive session to discuss a confidential attorney-client communication under provisions of Title I, Section 313A1F of the Vermont statutes, to include Town Manager Brent Raymond, Executive Assistant Judy Alberry, Attorney Ed Adrian, and Consultant Ron Wojcinski.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by Chris and a second by George. Discussion regarding the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
That would be unanimous. Thank you very much. To come out of executive session at 7:55. Do we have any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of coming out of executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
That would be unanimous.
I recuse, yes,
So that'd be 401. Unless, I guess it doesn't matter.
I'm not sure what it
Do you want to be in the majority or not? You want it 5-0?
I don't know if I'm not voting, so I wasn't sure what the plot means.
I guess it can go, I guess it can be 5-0.
Yeah, coming
Okay.
out.
Okay, we're now out of executive session. Thank you, those of you that are in the waiting room. There's, just so you know, there's nobody in the audience right now. I would entertain a motion.
Okay. I would move to uphold the town manager decision with the following modification: that we release only the readily identifiable government contact names and government email addresses.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Chris and a second by George. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
That would be unanimous. Did you say aye as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I just automatic. Nay, recuse,
So 401.
sorry.
That's okay. Okay, it's my understanding that we are going to go back into executive session. For those of you on Zoom, we came out of executive session to make that motion, but we are going back in. And once again, as I said before, I do not know how long this is going to take. I apologize for that.
Take down who says the motions, I will print it.
Do I have,
We've already made a second motion already.
Yeah, ask him about that, if we have to make another one. That's what I'm wondering.
Ed, do we need to make another motion? We did come out of executive session. I assume we have to make a motion to go into executive session again?
Yeah, you could just say for all the same reasons that you went into the first executive session.
Okay.
So I would move to go back into executive session for all the reasons that we made the first and second motions.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. So I have a motion by Chris, and a second by Richard to go back into executive session for all the same reasons that were mentioned earlier. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
That would be unanimous as well.
So we still got people on the screen here, so.
We've got people.
Wait a moment.
Yeah.
So
Those of you on the screen, we're just going to wait. We're going to have to put you back in that waiting room.
So the beautiful thing about a Ring camera, it lets you know when your cat walks in.
What do you have there?
My cat.
What's the camera, though?
It's one of those Ring cameras.
Oh,
So it
oh.
alerts you with his motion.
Can you open the door? You can't open the
No,
door.
I can't open the door. But it's so funny, it'll trip it, and I'll be standing right there, and they're like, this is great. But it just cracks me up when they're.
That'd be cool, huh, if you could open up a pet door digitally,
I-
remotely?
You probably could rig one up.
My cat would just sit there and just stare at it.
I know.
Like when I open the door, he just looks at me. I said, "Are you coming in?" And
I do have a cat door, and they love it when the door is open, but they, if I'm there, they much prefer the doorman open it.
I am sure there is an app you can get that opens the cat door.
I'm sure there
Sure there
is.
is.
Because I certainly can open I can open the garage door through an app.
If you can look in your refrigerator to see whether you have eggs or not while you're at the market, I think you can open a cat door.
Yeah, you can do everything on it, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, when if I were here and forgot to close it.
it's just the one.
Instead of a clicker on your Bible, you've got an app on your phone.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I can turn on the lights and do all kinds of, I haven't even figured out what all I can do, because it's like,
This is where we're at 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, exactly.
It's handy to be able to turn your lights on these days.
It is, yeah. Especially when it starts getting dark so early, because you don't want to leave them on. And, Jim, you're just printing out stuff.
What's that one? There was just one on this, stop on the highway, right?
That's all I found was one.
Okay.
Oh, God, I forgot all about it.
Any basketball fans in the room? Or online?
I'm disappointed that Duke and Duke isn't playing in the final.
Yeah.
I thought
went
Duke-
to UNC, so I'm not upset at all.
Duke and Auburn, I
yeah?
thought would be the final game, and Houston, Florida won. Just like, it was a great game. I really enjoyed watching UConn women's game yesterday.
Yeah, that was a great
They
game.
play, they really
UConn
play
really
some
blew it open.
serious basketball.
I watched them play PC, which was not much of a game, but it was very interesting to watch Oriamo. He was running that like a practice. They'd go down, they'd run a play, they'd score, and he was all over them because somebody hadn't gone exactly where they wanted to be. And then there were other times, he was just nice and quiet, but boy, he was taking it seriously, not for the score, but he wanted them to do what he wanted them to do.
He was a pretty emotional coach, wasn't he?
He's pretty quiet that day,
Of
but
course, so was the South Carolina coach, but for different reasons.
Excuse me, there is another sheet here.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
Is that for the permit or is that for us?
It's,
Town of Morristown access permit application.
no, that's gonna be when they submit one, we'll sign,
Oh, okay, thank you.
I believe.
So that,
It's worth asking, Brett, but I think it's fair.
yeah, this is not.
It's the format that
It's
we'll
the
use
format, okay.
when somebody wants to do something.
You know, for 30 years, I ran the pool at Stowe High School, the NCAA basketball pool. And I'm obviously not doing it this year, but I had all 8. I had 7 of the 8 final, the Elite 8. I had all 4 of the Final 4. I had Houston and Florida going tonight. And we'll see if Florida wins.
Was there money involved in this?
No, there's no money.
I was gonna say, this
Just
sounds
Lauren
illegal
and
as
I.
all heck, running it out of us.
Just Lauren and I at the house, and so it's just a bunch of,
No, I'm at the pool at Stowe High School.
Oh, that, yeah, there was.
Uh-oh.
Well, I can't answer that. I pleading the fifth on that one.
You gotta get back.
Okay, so,
Well, it's all done, you're going into executive session, I need to put it on me. Where you want me to get on?
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you, folks.
Hold on one second. Who made all the motions?
I have them all copied.
Okay. So we had to do them all over again.
No, well, we just made a motion to go into executive session with, under the same guises of 1 and 2.
Okay, good.
Okay, we're all good?
I would make a motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
I got a motion by Chris, Richard, a second by Richard, to come out of executive session for the second time. It is 8:53. Discussion? All those in favor of coming out of executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
I would so move.
Second.
Motion by Chris, second by Richard, 8:54. Come out of, to adjourn.
I get this one.
Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That would be unanimous. Both of those are unanimous.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Here are the motions.